Hey fan peeps, this is your podcast host Kunal here. I started this during the pandemic, and in this podcast I discuss my nerdy thoughts and hobbies with you, with the occasional special guest. From anime to Zeppelins, we talk about it all. Hey everybody, thanks for coming back. I got a repeat guest again. I've been repeating guests like crazy lately. Ditya, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. Thanks for coming on this fucking gorgeous Sunday, with the sun is shining and it's warm, which are all lies. But yeah, today we wanted to do an episode where talk about a really cool video game and specifically why. So a lot of times I'm very much like an old man when it comes to doing a lot of things. I keep friends like Aditya around, so that make me, as I like to say, keep me young. He's 2 years younger than me, and he's like, "Oh, you played this game, you played that game, you played this game," and I'm like, RPGs overwhelm me. But one of these sections, it's not technically an RPG, but we're going to talk about God of War Ragnarok today for a multitude of reasons you probably wouldn't expect. But yeah, basically in 2018, I had played the first one, loved it, and then I got the one recently and beat it about a week ago. We're recording this at the end of January. One of the reasons I'm doing it is because when I played the first game, that was my first big journey, like mid-20s, to work on like mental health stuff and whatnot. And that's very therapist. I just amicably parted ways with. Learned a lot, learned everything I could from them. And I'm going to miss them dearly. But I'm with someone great now, and it's weird because both of those games talk about just understanding loss, understanding growth, and acceptance, all these big things. So that's kind of where we're starting. Yeah, let's focus on the newer games. Why did you enjoy it so much? Let me ask you that.
I'm a big fan of story-driven games, you know?
I hear that.
I played the old God of War games, like on the old PlayStations.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great. I mean, great games for what they were, you know.
A lot of sex.
Yeah. Maybe not the most appropriate games to have played at that age, but...
Oh, dude, fuck that. It's all good.
You know, those games were very much platformers. There wasn't much redemption in that story. It was like vengeance, all nonstop vengeance, right?
Just blood, no
bloodshed.
guts, no guts, no glory.
Yeah. And I love what they did with the 2018 game where they came out and it's like an older Kratos who is dealing with the aftermath and the his demons that still haunt him from his past.
By the way, I'm going to take this moment to say, like, epic spoilers ahead for the 2018 and 2022 game, God of War. So just, this is your warning. Continue.
I guess before we start talking about that, we should maybe recap the original story, because I think
we totally could. Yeah,
that's part of why these games are so impactful. Where in those original PlayStation games, Kratos was a Spartan warrior,
yes,
who was basically about to lose a war. So he prayed to Ares, the god of war, Greek god of war, and said, "Give me power and I will serve you. Let me win this war and I will serve you." Right. So he gets these blades called the Blades of Chaos, right? And Ares blesses him, but then the blades bond to his arms basically irreversibly. He can't get rid of them. And he belongs to Ares now, right? And he kills a lot of people, like a ton of people in Ares' name. And finally, Ares decides to trick him and sends him to a village and tells him to slaughter everyone in the church.
Gives him a bloodlust, I think. Or
yeah, it gives him like this bloodlust where he doesn't know who he's killing. He just sees people and he just kills them all.
Right.
And he comes to find out, he goes in this church, he kills everyone. Then he wakes up from this spell, and it turns out he's killed his own wife and daughter. Right?
Yeah. And
that was the moment where he kind of swears vengeance against the Greek gods, because they played him. They used him like a toy and for their own amusement. And that was what the whole first three games are about, where he goes and gets revenge on the gods for what they did, for turning him into this killing machine that saw nothing but blood, right?
Like a really good killing machine.
Yeah. So I love that now in the 2018 God of War, they find him, is trying to escape that past and redeem himself, but not really, because he's kind of just running away still. He hasn't really made the effort to confront what he did, you know?
He's just so like it's actually kind of cool because they show you how hurt he is by everything. Like
For sure.
Well, at least so far, they haven't told us how the hell he made it to this part of.
I believe there's a comic.
There is a comic that
addresses,
explains that.
yeah.
Well, then that's why I bring you on.
Mm-hmm.
You fill in all the gaps. But regardless, he's still running away from all of his problems, and you finally see this whole different side of him. I mean, he looks different. He has wrinkles. He has his voice is much more gravelly. Granted, it's a new voice actor, but still. And he's grown a beard. He's showing signs of aging now, and like, even though he's thousands of years old.
And he's a father again. I remember that comes with a whole set of almost PTSD, you know, that he had a child before and he murdered that child. So now you find him with this new child, Atreus, and at the beginning of the game, he's not close to him at all. They barely
knows
speak.
him. Yeah.
And, you know, thinking about that, it's like, I can imagine if I were in his shoes, it would be like, I saw what happened to my last child. You know, how am I going to get close to this child knowing that, you know, what might happen, right?
And like right after when your wife dies too. So like,
yeah,
it was a moment of like, you fall in love with this woman, you have a child with her, she knows who you are. And then like basically they made it sound like he was kind of absent when he was younger, essentially. Like what was the explanation for that? Because I was kind of confused when I was playing 2018's version of that. He just kind of disappears for a while, and like Atreus doesn't really know him, essentially.
He just goes out hunting and stuff to provide for the family, but he doesn't bring Atreus with him. He doesn't hold him very much. He doesn't spend much time with him.
Okay.
Which, I mean, they don't really explain explicitly, but,
yeah,
you know, you can kind of infer that, you know, after what happened to his last child, he's just avoiding getting close to Atreus.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want, I believe his daughter's name was
Calliope.
Calliope or Calliope, I don't know how to pronounce it.
The game said Calliope, so
okay.
I was going to go with that, yeah. As I was playing the game, I loved it, and it was really cool to see like just a father and son kind of bonding and whatnot. Plus, like the voice actor is Christopher Judge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you were a Stargate fan back in the day.
I wasn't, but
okay.
I saw a few episodes.
Dude, like the guy plays the same character basically.
That's awesome.
Like he's the first prime of Apophis, Teal'c. And basically like all the other like top system lords know who this guy is because he's that good of a warrior. So for me, it was like, oh, nice. Teal'c is playing like he's playing a more vicious character. But yeah, it's nice to see him back into a role and they even kind of reference it in the game in the beginning when he says "indeed," and that was like one of his catchphrases.
Oh, that's awesome!
Continually in the game. So whenever I'm watching Kratos play, I was like, oh, cool! This is part of my childhood coming back. So
that's fun.
That's been really cool. And one of the reasons that I really like this game is because it deals with like growth, because after you finish the 2018 game, they start to have somewhat of a bond that goes by, and you know that like you see in the mural at the end in Jotunheim that in the first game, that Kratos is going to die, and right. He does not tell Atreus, and he just keeps that quiet, and so he just continually trains him the whole time, because like I think because of that is what kind of lays seeds for him opening up a lot more in the next game.
Exactly.
And as that's happening, the entire theme of Ragnarok, as they've unleashed it, which just translates to like the fate of the gods or something like that. I think that's what one of the people I was watching online talking about, like how to describe Ragnarok. And he knows that his time is running out with his son. So he's doing everything he can to, one, prepare him for adventures on his own and a life on his own. But now it's like, he also can't tell him at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or he doesn't want to tell him.
He doesn't want to tell him because he wants to it's kind of like someone who has, I guess, a terminal cancer. Some people choose to just not tell the family altogether.
Yeah.
It's just a way they can enjoy the rest of their time together, which is super, super sad. This game does not shy away from heavy emotion at all. So examples of accepting change, learning from past mistakes, dealing with great sorrow, and trying to atone for past is, like a really good example is Freya and Kratos fighting. So in the first game, as a way of protecting her, you kill off Baldur, her son. Essentially, it just completely unleashes Freya the entire like first half of the game for Ragnarok. You're continually trying to figure out like, how do you reconcile with her? How do you figure out things? And they eventually come to an understanding that, and it's a cool scene of forgiveness for both of them going together.
Yep.
What were the parts of the game that really stuck out to you, man?
Well, obviously, if you talk about things that stick out, you can't skip over the reveal of Tyr, right?
Oh my God, yeah.
The betrayal of Tyr, and the fact that Tyr was Odin the whole time.
My God.
And was basically playing them from the start.
Yeah.
Right? That's a huge moment that sticks out. And I think it's really interesting because obviously it ends up with the death of Brock, who is one of the central characters of the story, right? One of the most beloved characters.
Honestly.
It is a very tough event in the game because, and I think it translates to real life too, where it's like, how do you draw this line between trust and caution, right? And in this event, they trusted too much, and it bit them in the butt.
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
they were like Tyr is such this like that's this character that's put up on a pedestal. Like
exactly,
he's a kind god of war, which is hard to find in mythology.
Right. So I think it was just a really interesting thing to happen. Obviously, my mind was blown when I first saw that part in the game, but I also just like thinking about it from like a real life perspective, and it's like, everyone has moments in life where they maybe trust the wrong people, right? And things just don't go the way that they expected.
Yeah, I definitely know that.
So I think it's a very relatable thing. Everything in this game is very relatable.
Yes.
Which I love about it. And that kind of goes into another moment that really stuck out is Atreus and Kratos kind of saying goodbye at the end, Yes. One of the parts that I love the most that really resonated with me is like in trying to make big life changes and whatnot. He's so worried about telling his dad that he's going to leave to find the Evergiants and save them. And Kratos doesn't get mad or anything. He just like looks at him and asks him like, does it terrify you? And he's like, yeah. He's like, then you should totally do it. Yeah. Just actually being a super supportive dad. And I thought that was beautiful. Oh yeah. I love that moment when he's like, does it scare you? And he says yes. And he says, then that is why you must do it. Exactly. And I love the voice acting there. Again, another lesson that is huge in life, right? You have to do things that scare you and push yourself out of your comfort zone, or else you end up stuck. If you're comfortable for the rest of your life, that's a dangerous thing. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think that's something that we kind of know as kids, and sometimes we tend to forget that as we get older. Oh, totally. So playing games like this is a great reminder. And then the other moment that always really sticks out is, well, there are a couple more actually, but one is where Ragnarok started. They're in Asgard, and they find out that Odin placed the Midgardians in front of the wall. Oh my God, yeah. And the basically putting them in harm's way. Yeah. So saying that, hey, if you want to get in and defeat me, you're going to have to kill all these innocent people. You got to be a monster. Right. To do it. Yeah. And actually, Atreus' friend who's in that group, Skilder, he means that name means shield. Oh, cool. So it's very an interesting little parallel there. Okay. Just symbolism, right? Like Odin is using those people as a shield. Bastard. And I love that moment where both games, Kratos always tells Atreus to close his heart to everything. Yes. And because a good warrior always keeps his heart closed and does what needs to be done. Wars are won by those who are willing to sacrifice everything. That's what he always says. Right. And he sees Atreus repeating that to himself to like convince himself that it's okay to sacrifice these innocent people. Right. And then Kratos pulls him aside. He's like, I was wrong. Like, I was wrong. Open your heart to their suffering, because that's who you are. And that was your mother's wish and mine as well. And I think I love that moment too, because it's beautiful. It's a moment of acceptance, right? To show you that who you are is okay, to accept who you are, because that's a strength, right? I think that leads credence to also him understanding that there's more to life than being a Spartan. Yeah. Because like that's just literally there's a, as you're playing the game, the dialogue that they talk about, like how Spartans are, and you and I have
had history lessons on Spartans, etc., from Assassin's Creed and from school. But essentially, what happens to them is high levels of child abuse. They're beaten incessantly from a very young age, and like the weak are bred out apparently.
Yep.
And he kind of realizes that there's a moment where Atreus asks his dad, he's like, "So is there a reason that you didn't think I could take the training?" He's like, I didn't want you to have the training.
Yeah, I love that part.
Then there's a moment where kind of Atreus realizes like, oh, my dad doesn't think I'm weak. He just truly loved me enough to know what was best for me.
Yeah, I love his response after that. He's like, "Oh, thanks."
Yeah, he's kind of speechless. He's like, well, yeah. There's a lot of good moments for Atreus, and I really feel like in the first game, he was so much younger, and it's hard to. A lot of the complaints I heard about the first God of War was that Atreus is annoying as hell. I'm like, well, he's a
kid.
He's 10 years. He's
like
barely
tiny.
10 years old.
Yeah,
he's barely 10 years old. In this
and
one,
his mom just died, and he's traveling with a guy who's basically a stranger.
Right, and he doesn't even know who the hell he is. He just found out he's part god, and that's gonna mess with your head. I'm like, give the kid a break.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, he's coming into his own a lot more. He's much less of a douche, much more like learning from his mistakes because he's older. That's just
I don't think he's less of a douche. He's more of a douche in this game. Let's be honest. He's a teenager.
He's a teenager, but I feel like he's less annoying, maybe like that.
Yeah, I guess
sometimes,
sort of.
Okay,
I don't know.
Open to interpretation. We'll go with that one.
But no, I agree. I mean, I've never understood the hate for Atreus in this game or the last game.
Yeah.
Obviously, like even in this game, he's a teenager. He wants to make his own way in the world that's separate from his father.
I think what I'm trying to say is that I agreed to what you just said. Like, I think what I'm trying to say is like he has more autonomy in this game.
Exactly.
And because of that, it's easier to like him.
Exactly.
But yeah, I guess he is still pretty douchey in this game.
I do, I think one reason that whole interaction with Atreus and Kratos in Asgard kind of stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
Something I both love and hate about video games and TV shows and movies is almost this idealization of the personal journey in life, right? Where sometimes it seems like characters are able to work through their issues and reach this point of like self-realization and actualization or whatever you want to call it much quicker than most people in real life do, right?
Yeah.
But of course, that's part of the plot. Nobody wants to watch someone struggle for 20 years.
Right.
You need character development for a good plot.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about it. And I think it's really great to see, as long as you look at it from the lens of like, this is an idealized version of this, but this is what, the kind of development that I should strive for in my own life, right? So I really love that scene with Atreus and Kratos because it shows someone in Kratos who's very, very set in his ways, who is not very emotional, very closed off, and he is able to open up and apologize to his son, right? We all have childhood issues. We all have things that we go through with our parents, and we wish that we could hear our parents like earnestly say,
I was wrong.
This was wrong,
right.
And I'm sorry, right?
It's a level of humility you don't expect. Yeah.
And we want ourselves to be able to do that as well with the people we care about, right? But unfortunately, it's not that easy. I just like that we can see those kinds of interactions in games that just remind us of what we should kind of strive for.
Yeah, I'll never forget like something I read in The Portrait of Dorian Gray. It's often the mystery and magic that shows us the mundane or real life. Essentially, it's like it becomes a mirror for everything we really have to live through and everything.
That's a very good quote. I haven't read that book in a long time.
I just remember parts of it.
That's nice.
Thank you.
There is another part that really sticks out to me that I want to talk about as well.
Please do.
Near the end of the game, it's the final fight with Thor, Kratos and Thor.
Oh yeah.
And Kratos ends up defeating Thor and pins him to the ground with a knife through the hand, right?
Right.
And Thor's lying there. And a little bit of background for if someone's listening who hasn't played the game, this version of Thor is depicted as someone who He's like a destroyer god. He has slaughtered the giants. He's very much like Kratos. He's killed a lot of people, and now he is struggling to deal with those mistakes and confront those mistakes. So he's an alcoholic. He's drinking all the time. He is just struggling nonstop. It's
actually really cool to see him, even though he's a terrible person, still have some sort of like remorse for what he's done.
Yeah, and kind of drown it out because confronting it is too painful, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a background on Thor, but Kratos beats him, and Thor is pinned to the ground. He says, "Come on, just finish me off." I'm like, he's ready to die. And then they have this little conversation. Kratos says, "Your daughter, my son calls her friend," because Thrud, Thor's daughter, and Atreus are good friends in this story. And Thor says, "If you lay a hand on her," and Kratos says, "No, I would never do that." He stands up, takes the knife out, and lets Thor get up. And he kind of says that I don't want to fight you anymore, essentially. And Thor stands up, and this line always gets me. Like the emotion in his voice. I think the voice actor is Ryan Hurst, I think his name is.
Yeah, I think that's right.
He did a great job with this role. But Thor stands up and kind of like slams his hand on his chest, and he like screams like, "Do you know what I've done?" And I'm like, oh, that really gets me, because like in life we all make mistakes, right?
Right.
Mistakes that we don't want to think about or even talk about to anyone.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to feel like we deserve to suffer, deserve a certain fate because of those mistakes.
It's like you choose the identity of being someone who is terrible.
Right.
It's like that is easier than trying to do something about it.
Exactly. So he says, "Do you know what I've done?" And Kratos yells back, "Yes," and summons his weapon, but then puts it away. And he says, "But what will you do now?"
Exactly.
Right?
I loved that scene too.
Love that scene.
Yeah.
Thor gets up, picks up his hammer. He says, "We are destroyers. Like, we can't change." And Kratos says, "No, we have to change for the sake of our children. We have to be better."
Right.
I really love that scene. It's just a beautiful portrayal of like a real life struggle, because I think everyone feels like that sometimes. So yeah, that's one that really sticks with me for sure.
Gotcha.
But it sucks that right when Thor decides that he's gonna make a change, Odin comes and stabs him through the chest with a spear.
My God.
But we won't talk about that part.
I mean, we just did, so it's okay. But yeah, it makes that scene even more poignant, because it's like, oh, okay, cool, we got Thor on our side. And then you're expecting, oh, nice, we're going to see some epic NPC Thor help us out, and then very quickly that is taken away from us.
Yeah, that's very heartbreaking. Just seeing a character get their redemption only to basically be ended right there, and their existence ended. It's kind of nice that it ended on a good note, I guess. That's one way of looking at it, but
yeah, like,
it is tough. And that is another thing that's very common in life. People don't often confront what they need to confront or accept things about themselves until they're on their deathbeds, because life is just so crazy nowadays. You don't even have the chance to kind of sit down and work through things sometimes.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, dare I bring up cancel culture in the whole concept with it? But I don't know. Like, there's not a whole lot of, I feel like it's twofold. Like, one, it has to come from you, and two, it has to come from society to be able to allow you the change or allow you the space for redemption and understanding that comes through that.
Yeah, it's tough.
I don't have a formula for that, but
I don't think there is a formula, really. It's tougher nowadays too with technology and social media. You don't really have a chance to process things yourself. It's just like always something new in your face, something,
exactly,
a reminder, or other people who are doing the same things, or whatever it is. Just it's difficult. It's a difficult time to live, I think.
I think it is too, because it's so weird you bring that up, because I was literally just talking to someone yesterday about, like, within a span of 100 years, we've had so much technology just racingly, like, change the face of the world. From airplanes to automobiles to nuclear weapons to smartphones that give you dick pics. Like, it's just,
oh God,
I mean, they're on the list, and it's so much for our brains to comprehend, and it's so hard to do that.
Yeah,
that was not a pun that was intended, but it was there. God, I'm like 12 years old. So I've loved mythology just like you do. And one of the reasons that I didn't really research Norse mythology a whole lot is because it's often associated with like the really dangerous people, racists. You got your Hitler fans, good old Nazis and stuff like that. So I would stay away. And it was nice to give me the facilitate to give Norse mythology a second chance, because there's a lot of like really cool stories, and often it's attributed to wrong people, when I feel like you're missing out on so much interest and joy that's going on.
Yeah, definitely. I like Norse mythology a lot. I think it's really interesting. I love most mythology. I think it's just there's so many cool stories and lessons to be learned from all these tales, you know. Whether you believe in them or not, obviously, you know, I know I'm not a very religious person personally, but I still love learning about old religions and new religions and whatever it is, you know.
It's a cool way to see how people view the world and how they make sense of the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's interesting to me because like as like I've been going through some stuff last year, I oddly become more spiritual. I started like looking into more quote unquote pagan religions. Now, granted, this is all like surface level. A lot of it I've looked on like TikTok, and so very much of it I still have to research and whatnot. It's good. It's been good for me to see that other side of me, because I grew up in Catholic school, and of course I didn't believe in all that stuff. Yeah, I know it makes me shiver as well every time I think about it. You didn't see that, but he just did a little twitch. And it's really interesting to me to see all these really cool stories that are going on. Like I got the Ramayana and an audiobook, and I've been loving it to death.
That's a great story.
It's a great story. How have you heard it? Or
yeah.
Okay, cool.
I used to read all the Indian Hindu mythology back in the day.
I figured
growing up,
but we should talk about that more. Then I need to do that with you. Yeah, and I'm loving every minute of it, and it's just cool to see all these quote unquote pagan religions that have a lot more inclusivity than from what I've seen in Christianity, and how it just tends to suppress everything and control.
I think Catholicism is a bit of an extreme, though.
Yes,
unfortunately, that's like the most famous form of Christianity. Somehow, it's become that. And when you think of Christianity in general, you always picture Catholicism. You see the Pope, you think of those things. But I was talking to another Christian friend who's he's very religious, and he runs like Bible study groups with high schoolers that kind of need guidance and stuff, and goes to church every week. I think he says he goes to like a non-denominational church, and he was even telling me like he thinks Catholicism is a very warped version of Christianity.
That's really
like,
cool.
They do a lot of things that aren't in like the Bible.
Gotcha.
So I've always felt that. I don't know. I felt like more judgment from Catholics.
Oh, totally. When I went to college, like people were trying to convert me.
Right.
It's kind of. I will say this as a clarification. I've met like wonderful Christians, and I think there's a lot of cool things that Jesus said.
Yeah.
But often people who are in control in the church and stuff don't often give the best show of it. Well, let's say that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have nothing against anyone. You know, I think all religions are great in the sense that it gives people something to believe in, something to, like a guide almost to live their life by, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like any religion, right? And this isn't even a religious thing. It's just like people in general. I've met ones who are more judgmental and try to convert me in other religions as well. And I've met a lot of people who are really great and really nice and wonderful.
Yeah.
So this is not like an attacking Catholics thing. It's
no, we're not. Like,
yeah.
You can go anywhere else for that, but we're not doing that here. Yeah.
I think if you think hard enough, you can attack any religion.
Oh, for sure.
Or any group of people at all.
Yeah. Anyhow, it's been refreshing to look at pagan religions and see that they were just trying to understand the world too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really cool. It's honestly like Ragnarok's kind of been in a way healing for me, because I've been able to see the world a lot more open. You don't expect a video game to do this to you, but when certain works of fiction that you consume when you're going through a bunch of mental health stuff, it really makes you see the world in a better light. I don't know if you have similar experiences.
No, I experience that all the time, for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah,
sure.
I definitely have like a show and I'm going through something and I'm like, wow. So it's weird you associate the growth with that show and then kind of hits you in a different way.
Yeah, and I know I had mentioned this to you before we started recording, but
Yeah.
that this Christian show called The Chosen, which is kind of the story of Jesus Christ and like through the eyes of his disciples, right? I've been watching that lately during a time when I've, been going through a lot, and it definitely is like, a beautiful thing to watch, just the lessons that you can take from it, just accepting yourself and shortcomings and finding strength and weakness, things like that.
Definitely.
There are so many pieces of media that really hit differently when you're going through something, and you tend to find what you need, I think. If that makes sense,
No, it makes perfect sense. There are a lot of parables from the Bible that are really good. One that always comes out to me is donations.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, like one person, this very, very wealthy person, is donating so much gold to the temple, and then a pauper comes by and gives everything they have. Moral of the story is like the rich people were often doing it just to make themselves look good.
Right.
Whereas like the pauper was truly trying to do something out of their own goodness of their heart.
Yep.
And give everything, nearly everything they had for it. And there's really cool stories and this kind of relates back to Ragnarok because there's a point in there where I think it's when you fight the berserkers, it's the hilt.
Uh-huh.
And Mimir goes, please destroy the hilt.
Right.
And you're smiling because you know exactly what I'm talking about right now. And Kratos goes, no. And Mimir's like, what are you talking about? Please,
Right.
brother, please destroy. I'm not going to copy his accent because I don't do Irish accents well. But if you want to go for it.
I don't think I'm very good at it either.
Okay, cool. It makes two of us. He's like, why aren't you destroying the hill? He's like, and you see this growth in Kratos that you never saw coming. He's like, I will not destroy the hilt. It has a tremendous amount of power, and I will use it in time to come. People can judge what they think of the hilt from their own perspective, but I will do a lot of good with this hilt to create the rest of its story. And essentially he's saying the hilt story will be written by him and people can judge what they want from there. So essentially you're not beholden to mistakes of the past.
Yeah, exactly. Very symbolic.
Yes.
That's just such a running theme throughout the whole series.
Yes. Especially in this one.
Yeah. And I love that we're playing as like an old Kratos because he's pretty up there in age at this point,
like couple millennia at this point.
Yeah, and it's like a nice thing to see. It's like it's never too late to change or be who you want to become, even though it may seem like that, especially in today's day and age where everyone's online. People are on Instagram posting only the positive things of their life, right?
Yes,
and it's very easy to look at that and
be like, oh, I'm a piece of shit.
You feel behind.
Yeah.
You can feel very behind, and you see all these people having successes, and you feel like you're not where you want to be in your life yet.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we have a lot of time, and it's never too late. And Kratos reminds me of that because he spent his prime years being someone he didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And at a time when probably no one would expect him to change, he changed, and he was able to become something so much more and greater, and something that made him happy and fulfilled.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool.
He finally, I agree. He finally had some time where he could just think about things, learn to love himself, learn to trust himself, and kind of make up his idea of who he wanted to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And Faye really, I don't want to say that she did that for him, but she facilitated that for him.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love that scene at the end where he finds Faye's drawing where she drew over the mural of him being worshipped.
Yeah.
And he like breaks down in tears from seeing that because that's what he wants. And he wants to be seen as a good god, not as an evil god. And it kind of goes back to a scene earlier in the game where Odin confronts him and he's like, Odin kind of gets mad at him. He's like, have you ever been worshipped? Has anyone ever prayed to you? And like, you're not a god. You're a monster, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So it goes back to that too, because that is very clearly a fear in his heart. That's something that he resents about himself. So for him to kind of have that moment of validation at the end, and to see that his wife always believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself, I think was really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that scene is so shocking to me because he's been a hardened soldier for so long. And I know this has been a running theme in the episode, but like in specifically this part, you see that he really does want to be liked. He really
Mhm.
does want, maybe admiration is the wrong word, but like not to be hated. He wants to be remembered for good things.
Yep.
And who doesn't want that at the end of the day?
Exactly.
What else do you think of Atreus? Because I find his character to be kind of interesting in this game because he has so much thrust upon him. You find out that he's Loki in the first game. And then the entire game he's trying to understand like what is it. There's a part in the game where he specifically says it's like we're the masters of our own fate, but everything that we've seen in the murals has come true, and we had
Yeah.
and then he's like we have no control over this.
Exactly.
And granted, this is a game and whatnot, but it's a delicate balance of, I think, writing your own story and trying to figure out. I think Mimir says it the best. Is like whenever any god says this is what's going to happen, it's incredibly confusing to go down this road.
Yeah, for sure.
It goes back to another theme of telling ourselves whatever story we believe in. And what's cool for me is that Atreus finally goes through this journey in Ragnarok, specifically saying that gaining more confidence as he goes, like because there's many missions in the game where you just use Atreus and you don't need Kratos for this part, and it's showing that he's first of all trusting his son enough to go into battle, which is kind of ridiculous, and then number two, realizing that he has the autonomy and the ability and the confidence to do this stuff. And for me, playing this game at the same time, it's like it's a matter of trusting myself and trying to see like I can do what I need to, and I have the ability inside of me. So I kind of really like that part of the trace. Maybe that's why I don't think he's as douchey in the game.
Right.
Is because of that. But
No, I love that part of him. I identify with Atreus a lot in this game.
Okay, cool.
I think you can have both. He's still a teenager, right? He's like 14 or 15 in this game, I think.
At least, yeah.
And 14/15-year-old boys are like humongous douchebags.
Oh my god.
Like, let's be honest.
Socially awkward, monkish douchebags. Like, yeah.
But yeah, I identify with Atreus a lot. Atreus is very much someone who is in the shadow of his father, right? His father is a god, like a God of War, legendary God of War, who literally has destroyed pantheons single-handedly, essentially, right? At least I feel like this. I'm sure you do, and I'm sure everyone does at some point. But when you have a successful parent, you are kind of growing up in that shadow, and you have these expectations and pressure on yourself to rise up to that, right?
Everyone knows at least for me, it's like everyone knows your dad. I won't go into it too much, but essentially, like, he's been very successful in his business, and it's like everyone kind of quietly looks at you, and you can feel it.
Right.
If you can feel the looks that they're giving you,
right,
in admiration and expectance.
How do you think I feel? My dad's a doctor in St. Louis. I went to medical school, and now I'm a doctor, and everyone sees the last name, and they're like, "Oh, you're his son, right?"
Right.
So I know exactly what you mean. And Atreus is the same way. You know, people see him with Kratos, and everyone knows who Kratos is and what he does, and it's like, oh wow, look, his son is this little skinny kid who doesn't look like much. It doesn't look like he can really do much.
He turns into a bear. Yeah.
Well, I guess we don't really realize that till later, but he doesn't look like he can do that, right?
No, he doesn't. Yeah. And that comes much later in the game.
Yeah. Which, the point being that he doesn't really look like someone who can carry on his family's legacy in that sense.
And that's the thing. He doesn't need to.
Right, exactly. So I really identify with him a lot because, you know, growing up and now that I'm kind of making my own way as an adult, I want to carve out my own path and like make my own legacy, and I'm sure everyone feels the same way. So I think this journey that Atreus goes on is like a very personal journey to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And I think they do a really good job of portraying that. That kind of journey comes with a lot of bumps in the road, you know, just like in the game. Atreus is getting upset with his dad and getting upset about trying to follow this path that his dad is setting out for him, and he wants to do things on his own and like you said, have that autonomy. So I think that's something we all go through either as teenagers or young adults. We're just trying to make our own way through life without relying on our parents or our families. So yeah, like you said, even though he is still annoying and and frustrating to deal with at times in the game. And you look at him, you're like, why are you doing this? Why would you go to Asgard? You're like screaming at him in the TV.
Yeah.
But I think back to myself, like, gosh, I've done stupid things, as a teenager, even in my 20s, like, I've done stupid things. And that's just part of
call us smart too,
and that's just part of growing up. That's part of the journey that we all take. And I think a lot of people will identify with Atreus as long as they open their heart to that.
It's beautiful.
The game is very much relatable and approachable in like every facet. I feel like every scene has something that you can relate to. But if your heart and mind are not open to that possibility of thinking of your own life through that lens, then you're not going to relate to it like that, right? But if you really play this game and you look at it from that lens and just like think about what's happening on a personal level, I think anyone can relate to this story and really feel what the characters are going through, which I really like.
As you've been talking about this, it makes me think of two things. First of all, very beautifully said.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Keeping also with the theme of keeping your heart open with it. Two things. One, ship of Theseus.
Mm-hmm.
That whole understanding of if you take a ship or any kind of structural thing, warehouse, etc., and you'll have to do repairs for it. You'll have to change out bricks, change out windows, take out bad nails, do repairs, etc. Is it the same ship? Is it the same warehouse every time you do a repair? Because essentially you're putting something new in, and that goes into physical aspect too. I don't have to tell you that as a doctor. Your cells are replenishing themselves every day,
right?
Every minute of every day. Or I'm oversimplifying, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, if that's happening on the tangible level, that you can totally reinvent yourself all the time, and being open to yourself and for change, essentially,
right?
Which I think is something that is really interesting. It's like it's a Buddhist sentiment too. It's like you're always in a state of flux.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah. Well, I think we've talked about like the real heavy stuff in this game, and I wanted to know wanted to do two things. One, were there any parts of this game that made you just like jump out, like, or maybe like partially jump out when you're playing the game in excitement or anything while you were playing? Any moments that stuck out to you like that?
An excitement. Ooh.
Let me tell you one of mine.
Okay.
Cool. It's like, so when you get the drop near spear, that shit was awesome.
Yep.
And Brock's like, yeah, just go ahead and throw it. And like, I love the part where Christopher Judge just had so much fun. He's like, it is the first weapon Spartan uses. And you end up just like impaling a bunch of people as it's happening.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Any of those kind of scenes stick out to you?
I love that scene. Oh man, there's so many.
I know, right? It's a hard question, but whatever comes to the top of your head.
The first fight with Thor was sick, especially when he kills Kratos and the death screen comes up, so you think you actually died, and then Thor is like, "No, you don't die unless I tell you to die," and he like. He defibrillates him with his hammer and shocks him back to life.
I literally was like, oh shit, I'm still playing.
That was sick. And the first time when you realize you're playing as Atreus, I thought that was sick.
That was cool.
I was not expecting that.
I love the mocap that they did for him was actually pretty impressive. There's a moment where he does what's called a tornado kick. If you do like the R3 snaps, like he jumps up and does a tornado kick. I'm like, where the hell did you learn that?
That was so cool.
Yeah.
Gosh, there are so many moments in this game that are just crazy.
Kind of make you just like go wide-eyed and like, I did not expect that to happen.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. I can't even think of other ones, but there are so many.
Yeah. I think it was the first time that I fought one of the lupines, and like I just did one today, actually. And like whenever you do the final kill for them, he rips off the bottom of their jaw.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted you to die. I didn't want that to happen. So there's some parts of the game that was like, okay, this is why they call it God of War. Fair enough.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll do a third game?
100%. I mean, they're not going to do a Norse game.
Okay.
What I think is going to happen is it's going to be a few years down the line, and then Kratos, Mimir, and Freya will be hanging out, just repairing everything, hopefully thriving, just relaxing in the Norse wilderness. And they'll get some kind of distress signal from Atreus, and he's somewhere else in the world looking for giants, and he's in trouble.
Right.
And then they're going to journey to find him, and they're going to find another pantheon. I've heard rumors that they're going to do Egypt, which would be really cool.
That would be interesting.
And in fact, that comic that I told you about, where it kind of details the journey from Greece to the Norse area.
Yeah.
Kratos is in Egypt in that comic.
Doesn't he meet Thoth?
Yep, he travels through Egypt and meets Thoth. Although I don't think it's explicitly stated that it's Thoth, but like it's clear that it clearly is.
It's the head of Nostrus or whatever.
Yep. Yeah. So, and in the first God of War game in 2018, when you go to Tyr's temple, there's all these artifacts that Tyr has brought back from his travels. There's a lot of Egyptian stuff, a lot of Aztec stuff, all kinds of things. So I think Egypt would be awesome, and
Great.
They're definitely going to do a different pantheon. They've already said that, but
Okay.
they haven't stated which one.
I mean, we've killed off most of the pantheon at this point, so yeah.
The ancient pantheons, right? Like, because you can't go to religions that are still in practice today, because then you risk really offending a lot of people.
I mean, you definitely heard about this, about the internet rumor of like him fighting Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you can't have God of War Islam, God of War Hinduism, God of War Christianity. Like that's off limits.
I will say though, I mean, I want to see Jesus take out the loaves of bread, start smacking Kratos, take out some wine, drinking the wine to replenish his health.
No, actually,
flipping over tables.
No, dude. Kratos would get along with Jesus. Like current Kratos would get along with Jesus so well, because like Jesus is non-violent. Yes. He just wants peace to like chillax, right? And Kratos now is the same way. He doesn't want to fight anyone. He just wants to relax. So they would just probably break bread together.
I mean,
have drink some wine.
Have the devil control his mind for a minute. I want to see an epic fight go down. God. Flipping over tables.
Crazy.
No, but you're right. I do agree that he would probably be pretty chill with J-Dog. And
oh my god, dude. J-Dog. That's like borderline blasphemy, I feel like, dude.
All right, I apologize. I'm sorry.
No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking around.
Okay, all right. I didn't know that. But like, I mean, there's a part like I heard the internet rumor, and I just busted out laughing.
I know, it's so funny.
I thought that was hilarious.
I feel like the two pantheons that they can really go after now are Egypt and the Aztec religions,
because they've already mentioned them.
Yeah, they've mentioned them, but also they're ancient. Like nobody practices them anymore. So
that's true.
You're not going to offend people by killing Set or Thoth or any of the Aztec gods. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
I'm already picturing like a fight between, like in the Aztec mythology, like Kratos fighting a giant like feathered serpent.
Oh,
yeah. Know? Like that would be sick.
Kukulkan.
Yeah. That'd be really cool. So there are a lot of possibilities, and I'm excited for an older, weathered Atreus, with more weapons and
like being a full adult.
Yeah, he's going to be in his 20s by this point.
Hopefully, yeah.
So he'll be a man, like a full-fledged man with hopefully more advanced magic and powers.
We'll probably see like we'll probably see the last part of the mural at that point. We'll probably see his dad's death potentially.
No, so I think you might have missed something at the end of the game. Please
enlighten me.
Yeah, so that was like the original what was going to happen, but the point was that they were able to change their fates. So that's not going to happen.
Hence
in the
future. Fatebreaker armor. Okay, cool.
Gotcha. That's not going to happen in the future.
Okay. Never mind.
So the image was of Atreus holding Kratos' body and cradling it like this while his soul comes out. So if you remember when they killed Odin, that exact scene was mirrored with Odin, with his soul coming out in that formation.
Well, thank you for enlightening me.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I don't think we will really have any like prophecy anymore. It's like, we'll just see what happens.
Cool.
So yeah, I think it'll be really cool when they do a future game.
Hell
probably a few years from now, but
yeah, I mean like that was a 5-year gap.
Yeah.
4.5-year gap, but yeah, that's going to be...
But, I think COVID also impacted that. So maybe without a global pandemic shutting things down, it might be a little bit quicker.
Might be 2 years instead. Yeah.
But that would be cool. Yeah.
Santa Monica Studio is really like down to earth. If you ever get the chance, guys and gals and peeps, just go and check out any of the documentaries they've done. They're super, at least in how they depict everybody, they're super down to earth. They're super chummy. Corey Balrog and the team did a great job. And
you say Balrog like from Lord of the Rings?
Did I say Balrog?
Yeah, you did.
What's his actual name?
Barlog.
Is it Barlog?
Yeah.
Damn it! In my mind, I've been thinking Balrog.
Well, because that's like the Lord of the Rings, right? the Balrog that Gandalf fights, you shall not pass, right?
Oh God. By the way, you've been working on a book.
Yeah. I started writing a book, first of a trilogy.
You classy devil, you. Yeah.
A few months ago. It's been kind of slow going, but yeah, it's been fun.
That's okay. I mean, you're a doctor, so that's understandable. It's going, but like, it seems like you've taken some stuff from Swedish or Norse mythology. Would you say more Swedish on the side, or
kind of everything? I'm taking a lot
Okay.
from taking some things from Hindu mythology.
I kind of got that
doing
too.
some names are more like not Middle Eastern, but like Eastern European kind of things. There's a lot of different things peppered in.
You're kind of mixing it in. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I've been kind of one of your alpha testers.
Yeah, alpha readers.
Not
sort
an
of.
alpha male, but
Although
alpha
you haven't read much recently because
Yes.
like I haven't sent anything over, but
That's
I
okay.
have lots has changed.
We have gone through the holidays. It's all good. I'm here. But yeah, I've been reading this since August, I think.
I think later than that, right? Maybe October,
Maybe October.
something like that.
Definitely the last half of last
Yeah.
year. Okay, yeah. It's been good. It's been fun. It's been really cool. I remember getting the text. I was at the gym because I like to get yoked as fuck, and I got I got a text from you that said, "Hey, I'm writing a book," and I'm like, "Oh shit, okay, great." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm honored to be a reader for that. Thank you." And yeah, stay tuned. We'll keep you guys. We'll bring you back, of course, and we'll talk about your book another time. But this is a little teaser,
Yeah,
little stuff like that.
almost done with the first book of the trilogy. Obviously, it'll be a first draft. I'll need to send it to an editor and stuff. And
Yeah.
but no, it's been really cool and a really fun thing to do. I think the troubles with writing, especially when you're a new writer in the fantasy genre, because that's what I'm writing in, it sometimes is difficult to not like copy other storylines.
It is incredibly like you have my respect because it is hard not to do that.
It is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone has inspirations when they're doing something creative. So I have a lot of authors
That's true.
who are inspirations for me, like Brandon Sanderson and Will White, who wrote the Cradle series.
Unsold as well.
Yeah,
Or-
that's the first book of the Cradle series.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
And his books actually really inspired me to write this. So it's in the progression fantasy genre, which is basically where the main character kind of levels up as you go on, and they're tangible kind of power jumps, sort of. So you kind of feel that sense of progression with the character, and it's a very satisfying thing to kind of go through. Sort of like if anyone listening has seen Dragon Ball Z, it sounds like Goku's always kind of
I don't think
leveling
any of the fans know that show. So like you may have to explain that. No. But that's awesome, man. Thanks for keep it up, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast.
No problem. Hey fan peeps, thanks for listening, and I'd love any feedback you have for me. Please follow the Facebook page, They Need a Hobby, and follow us everywhere, social media wise, under the handle @TNAHpod. That goes for Twitter and Instagram, and one of these days, I'll be super popular.
You like my poop?
Your poop is delightful.